So you've hit level 20 in Neverwinter. You may be wondering what to do next. Well, a big part is to focus on your gear and getting the right stuff. In this video, we're going to cover 4 damage dealers. You can see your role. If you have the cross swords, you're a DPS. That stands for damage per second. So your objective is to deal as much damage as possible. Therefore, you want to get gear that is going to provide you extra damage. But it is generally done pretty indirectly by giving you offensive stats. These 5 main stats all provide effectively a damage boost to your attacks in certain ways. Ultimately, once you get to endgame, you will manage to get 90% max out in all of them. But it is very dependent on what gear you obtain. And throughout the game, there's hundreds and hundreds of different gear pieces you can get. And so I want to cover a gear progression list. What to work towards regardless of what stage you are in the game. Starting from, you've just hit level 20. What should you do? Well, here is my basic DPS gear progression list. It covers all of your slots, from your head, weapons, rings, shirt and trousers. So once you've hit level 20, you can immediately begin to obtain all of the gear in column 1. This will, as far as I could find, provide the most damage to you based on these stats and things like that at the easiest level to obtain. I'll go through this step by step for you in case you're unaware what those names mean and where to get those items. We begin with the Lothian or Dragonsteel head. You will need to go to a seals vendor, like in Protector's Enclave, into the Seven Suns custom market, and you speak to this guy. You'll find he'll give you gear for these seals. So you have this Lothian headpiece here. It might have a different name depending on what class you are, but they all give the same bonus. Then the Dragonhide ones or Dragonsteel ones in this section. Again, it will depend what class you are. If you have a tank or a healer path, then you'll find different ones again with different bonuses. But go for the ones that will benefit you as a damage dealer. So Seals of the Dragon one will give you 5% damage against dragons. Very good. Well against those dragons. Then you would use the Spider God one everywhere else. It's alright. It's not great, but you're not going to find much better this early on in the game. Those seals necessary to obtain that gear very simply comes from your random queues, which I highly recommend you be doing every day. Your skirmish queue got the Seals of the Dragon along with the dungeon queue, and then your advanced and your trial queue got those Seals of the Spider God. From there, with your headpiece, you could upgrade to the Delzoon cap. Since you are level 20 and it's module 29, you can take advantage of the current grace period. Start this campaign regardless of your item level, the Mountain of Flame. Make sure you go to Sergeant Knox up here and pick up the quest, Mount Now Rumblings, and unlock the area. Within that, you can farm currency and you can earn enough to be able to purchase, say, this Delzoon cap. Now this gives you a decent amount of power and a decent amount of combat advantage while in combat for any length of time, which is great then for those boss fights. From there, I would go for the Garistro Horns or the Serene Hood, both having the exact same bonus of Butcher's Focus. The Serene Hood comes from Dragon Hunts with the Dragon Slayer campaign. You'll find them in the store right here. You can do Dragon Hunts, or you can purchase the campaign buyout for Dragon Slayer. It will be available to you here, or you can check the auction house and then you can just buy the parts you need. But you can just play the game and find people to do those Dragon Hunts. But the other option is the Garistro Horns. Here it's a little bit more complicated, as you will have to go to the campaign Path of the Fallen to unlock Avernus, and you can see all of the different gear in the collections here, and there are the Garistro Horns. You will have to do your Avernus hunts, and I recommend watching this video I made 3 years ago on how to get them. But again, you can just do Dragon Hunts instead. Or you can skip straight to the Depths head pieces. So these ones are going to come from the latest dungeon they added. You can see the gear in the collections in the Mountain of Flame. You've got just the normal depths armor. This is a very good depth cured headpiece, giving you the combat advantage. Very good for endgame builds, and once you get to the master level of the dungeon, you'll obtain the mythic version. So yes, you'll have to get to the item level and to unlock that dungeon, Lair the Mad Dragon. 60,000 item level, and it is pretty much the headpiece that the majority of damage dealers use in endgame right now. You can look at, for example, my own builds. The barbarian uses it, the bard uses it, the cleric uses it, the fighter uses it, even have it here on ranger. Rogue uses something different, which is the Bregan headpiece, unique to just them and a few other separate classes, and that's something to keep in mind of. At the end game level, you might not always use these exact ones. It's going to differ depending on the optimization of your build, but particularly between modules. But in general, these are very good ones to have that will help you maximize your stats. So from there we go to our armor pieces. So again, we go to the dragon steel armor, which is simply obtained with the seals of the dragon, and then you would go with the mighty cuirass or the sharp jacket or the rib cage. The first two come from Dragon Slayer, again, those ancient dragon hunts. The sharp jacket can be useful on, say, the rogue in particular, and then the mighty cuirass on pretty much everybody else. Even in endgame, you're using a version of this piece just with higher item level. The ribcage comes from Avernus Haunts, not something you can get alone as well. You have to go through the whole rigmarole and complete all of the tiers of the haunts in order to beat up the big boss to obtain those. And in my opinion, not really worth it compared to just doing dragon hunts, particularly if you can just get the campaign completion token on one of your characters. After that, it's just the Depths Forge armor. That is just from the new dungeon, with the mythic from the master dungeon and the legendary from advanced. In most cases, people will want to go for the master one, and that's the accuracy and combat advantage one, which is a direct upgrade from the mighty cuirass. So there's no harm using the mighty cuirass everywhere until you can get those. And that's it for armor. Now we go to arms. So again, I would start with the seals of the dragon hide bands. Again, named a bit differently depending on the class, but these just give you a little bit of a damage boost to your at-wills after you use the daily power. Not great, and so you will want to quickly head towards getting, say, the Astral Raider arms, which I believe you can obtain now fairly easily by, again, taking advantage of the grace period of start this campaign regardless of your item level with adventures in wild space. You'll head there to the maps. For example, we go to Moon Vokath, and while you're here, you will see the invasions bar. And when that's full, you'll be able to access your invasions by going to Gabion space and just teleporting inside there. Once you're there, you'll be able to pick up chests, kill enemies, and either get lucky and get those arms to drop for you, or get the currency through the Lades Araxis campaign to purchase them here. They're absolutely huge bonus arms that will help you significantly as you progress your item level when you're doing scaled content, because they basically give you a bunch of damage back for being scaled, which just reduces your overall damage. I've made a video covering them 10 months ago here. However, when you're moving out of scaled content to like master, you might want to get the Mighty Vambracers, again, just from those dragon hunts, but you could just skip quickly over to the healing mates or the depths arms or the ultraviolet ones. You can see them in collections here. These ones giving crit strike when against one enemy, and then the depths and the depths forge ones giving you crit strike when against multiple enemies. You'll generally switch between the two. Or you get those healing mates from the first boss in your Master Demon Webpits dungeon. That's it for arms. We now go to feet. So again, I would start out with just simply the dragon steel feet with those seals of the dragon. Now, you might have different stats depending on your damage dealer class. You might, I believe, have like crit or combat advantage. All offensive stats there, so Decent for starting out when you're within a party, which will be the most important place to have good damage. Upgrading from that, you can get like the rusted iron leggings or the sharp long boots. Now you can check out this video from 4 years ago, how to get those rusted iron leggings. Still the exact same strategy. They're very solid damage boots. It's just your healer might not like you very much because you will be reducing the amount of healing that you receive by using them. The alternative is the sharp long boots just from dragon hunts here, but those will make it so that you take increased damage on critical hits. After that, you can work towards getting like the Wasteland Wanderers or the Mauler Greaves. Those Wasteland Wanderers are very simply from your Vault of Stars dungeon, but on hardcore mode, so you have to go on private, you'll have to get a team together. If somebody dies, you have to reset, and then you kill the mini bosses, and those mini bosses you can see in collections will drop all this different gear, including those Wasteland Wanderers. But if you go to the Demon Web Pits dungeon on Master, you can get some mythic boots, which basically have the exact same bonus. From there you can get like the Depths, Ultraviolet, or Radiant boots, these dropping in the new dungeon again, but they're mainly for bonus within fire theme maps, which sure is the current content now, but later down the road it won't be, so they'll only be relevant within this current content. And then if you're still running outside of that, like random queues, a lot of that content won't be say fire themed, so you might be better off with just more generalized bonus damage like your rusted iron leggings. And yes, be aware of other damage specific boots like these ones for wild space. Be aware of different damage dealer classes. For example, rogue can get their hands on Bregan boots with crit severity, which can be somewhat useful, but again, this is more generalized, supposed to fit all the damage dealers, so I haven't exactly added those in here. But that is it for boots. We're going to weapons. The first set of weapons I recommend you picking up is going to, again, Mountain of Flame campaign. You can access this regardless of your item level. Do your grinding, get your weekly haul, and you'll be able to get your weapons here. It will take you some time because you need to reach like the 5th milestone to get these ones, and just the 2nd one for these. And once you have your full set, they give you a decent boost to your stats, a whole bunch of item level, and some base damage as well. Definitely the set I would get early on. Another good follow-up set for that, for boss fights, is the Zoraxian set or the Mirage weapons. Keep in mind, Mirage weapons are only going to be good in like master content, master dungeons, and master trials. They are still very good to this day, particularly if you're a newer player. But otherwise, you can get your hands on the Zoraxian weapons. You can see them just here. And they come from your advanced dungeon, the Imperial Citadel. So you'll need the item level for that. You go there, you complete it, and you can get them. Very good bonus for boss fights if you're not running, say, Mirage. And then you can go up a level and get like Celerum and Void Touch. Currently like the 2 best weapons. Celerum for like multi-target, and you can use it everywhere. But then Void Touch for those dedicated one enemy boss fights. Celerum is from your Master Moondancer trial, and the Void Touch is from your Master Imperial Citadel dungeon. Just be aware that the magma weapons are still better for you if you don't cap out all of your stats. So the next part is your neck and waist and potentially artifact set. To begin with, I recommend the Demon Lord set. You can see the neck and waist here in collections, and ultimately it's just going to come from the trial Demogorgon. However, you need the artifact to go with it, the Shard of Orcus wand. Collectively, you gain Demon Lord's immortality when you have all 3 pieces, which gives up to 10% bonus damage, and you should be able to get the set super cheap. Don't pay more than, say, 10 to 30,000 Astral Diamonds for each piece. You can go on from there to the Apocalypse and the Marilith set. They work exactly the same. You can see the Marilith strike set here is going to cause the enemy to take additional damage up to 5%. And that's exactly the same with your Apocalypse set here. You can purchase both of them from the auction house. Again, just don't overpay. And you will need the artifacts like the Apocalypse Dagger and the Marlith Mask. The Apocalypse Neck and Waist comes from your Ravenloft campaign. You can purchase them here if you get enough currency, but the dagger will come from Many Coins Bank Heist. The Marlith Mask and the Neck and Waist will come from your Demon Web Pits dungeon, Advanced and Master. But as you head towards endgame, you'll find healers and tanks might be using them instead, and so you might want to switch to more personal bonus sets like the Detector set. This will come from the Moondancer trial. You can get it on Advanced and Master. There are 4 different pieces here. You'll want to try and go for the ones that give you favorable ability scores depending on your class, and you will need the artifact to go with it. But once you obtain all 3 pieces, you gain that unstable drive set bonus, which can give you 7% combat advantage, 7% forte, and ultimately very good for damage dealers to get you to those 90%. But the ultimate set right now is either Shroomwood or Scintillant. You can see them in collections here. You have like the Shroomwood Sash, and for some reason the Shroomwood Amulet's not there, but that is what you would use with physical damage dealers, and then you would go with the Scintillant Sash and the Scintillant Amulet for your magical damage dealers. Pretty much all of the endgame builds use this set, as it's undoubtedly best in its current state. Just be aware, it's quite expensive to craft this, and you need master crafters to do so, and so buying it from the auction house can be around like $1 million to $2 million per piece. Can be a quite big investment, and particularly nowadays you might want to wait for the next module within about 2 months before, say, investing that much into a set, which might then just come along a better one that's easier to obtain. So I would recommend waiting if you're a new player and haven't got it yet. You can just stay with your Detector set, or even Apocalypse and the Marlith set, as again, they have that additional super good support effect. But from here, we go to rings. And we'll just look at like our 1 ring at a time. So first of all, you want to get like the Smoldering Halo ring. So while you're in Mount Hope now, you have these heroic encounters. I recommend joining people and doing those and farming them. You'll need to get that currency anyway from them. But while doing so, you'll get these epic rings, which have decently high item level. And I would recommend trying to get that Smoldering Halo here. You'll also want to get the Smoldering Hoop, which is definitely the better of the 2. But these would be what I would get to begin with. Good item level, decent bonuses which will increase your damage if you need those stats. But the upgrade from here would be the legendary version. Here you will have to do the Lair of the Mad Dragon dungeon. You can just do it on advanced and you'll get them. The Halo ring gives you that combat advantage while you're in combat. It will be something you'll want to replace as you get towards endgame because it won't stack with the headpiece. And then you will most likely want to upgrade to, say, the Illustre's Beauty. This one coming from the Temple of the Spider Master dungeon, and just straight up gives you that combat advantage regardless how long you're in combat. A bit better, also having a set bonus, which we will use with the Obligation ring. Keep in mind you can get one of those Illustre rings for free by completing the Demon Web Pits campaign. But then, yes, at endgame, you will be using a mix of different rings from your Master Moondancer, Master Imperial Citadel, Master Demon Web Pits. As you can see again, with these different builds, they all use a mix and match of those different ones. It will depend as well what stats you actually need. But yes, for your second ring, you will be going with like this Smoldering Hoop again, just when you're starting out with that extra power boost. Then I would go with, say, the Soothsayer's Ring of Absolution, especially if you're doing Dragon Hunts anyway, as you will find that in the Dragon Slayer campaign near the bottom section here. And that gives you the critical strike. A super good ring until you can, say, get Illustre's Obligation. To again go with Illustre's Beauty, you will just need to find people to run that content with you. But again, getting your abyssal rings from your Demon Web Pits dungeon can be super good, particularly with the Platinum loop and the Sapphire loop. But of course, there are some rings here from the Imperial Citadel and the Moondancer trial, which are good too. And again, that's what you'll generally run in endgame, a mix and match of those. But now we go to our shirt slot. I would begin with the Drow shirt. You'll simply get it again at your seals vendor for Seals of the Dragon. You want to go one with offensive stats here, so like your Drow Mercenaries tunic or your Drow's Assailant's tunic, depending on which you still need. The potential upgrade from that would be the Corroded shirt of the Dragon Cult. You will go to the campaign Dragonbone Veil. Within that area you have mini bosses you can beat up, and you can see all those shirt and pants here. But you want to go for the shirts which have combat advantage. So there is even the Torn shirt of the Dragon Cult you can get, but the Corroded one is usually a bit better for its stats. Again, just named enemies within Dragonbone Veil. You can check out this video from 2 years ago where exactly those enemies are located. And finally, there's the Lair the Mad Dragon shirts you can get. These currently have the highest item level in the game, and they also have a set bonus. You can get ones which reduce your cooldowns, which are good in like general content, and then you can get one with bonus damage in fire theme maps. And then for your trousers, I would just start out with the Covert Brace Raid Breeches. Again, very simply with your seals here, Seals of the Spider God, and the Rage Breeches have like bonus offensive stats there. But while you're within a party and at least one person is further than 30 feet from you, you gain this bonus despite what it says on the tooltip. So it's very, very useful. But getting to endgame, you can again do your Lair of the Mad Dragon dungeon, and you can get those shirt and pants. Like there's all the legendary versions here, and the best pants are pretty much the bonus critical strike ones. Alternatively, the action points gain if you need to make sure you get your daily power back every minute. And yes, again, there's the legendary versions just from the advanced version of the dungeon. But that is the entirety of the list for basic DPS gear progression. If you have anything you'd like to add, you can absolutely feel free to leave a comment below, and you can maybe help some people out. There could be 1 or 2 pieces I missed along the way that might be easier to get, that can be pretty useful. Just make sure you know your math and know how these bonuses actually work. This is what I've determined as the best step-by-step you should go with in order to upgrade your characters, getting some very solid bonuses. Ultimately, thanks for watching. A special thank you to all of these channel members for your extra support. I want to see you guys around. Goodbye for now.